Troubleshooting Wi Fi Networks.
Wireless networks are a real boon when they work right, but they can also be one of the most vexing things to troubleshoot when they don't. Let's turn to some practical advice on how to detect and correct wireless hardware, software, and configuration problems. As with any troubleshooting scenario, your first step in troubleshooting a wireless network is to break down your task into logical steps. Your first step should be to figure out the scope of your wireless networking problem. Ask yourself who, what, and when. Who is affected by the problem? What is the nature of the network problem? When did the problem start? The answer to these questions dictate at least the initial direction of your troubleshooting. So who's affected? If all machines on your network, wired and wireless, have lost connectivity, you have bigger problems than the wireless machines being unable to access the network. Troubleshoot this situation the way you troubleshoot any network failure. Once you determine which wireless nodes are affected, you'll find it easier to pinpoint whether the problem lies in one or more wireless clients or in one or more access points. After you narrow down the number of affected machines, your next task is to figure out specifically what type of error the users are experiencing. If they can access some, but not all, network services, then it's unlikely the problem is limited to their wireless equipment. If they can browse the internet but can't access shared resources on a server, for example, then they're probably experiencing a permissions-related issue rather than a wireless one. Finally, determine when the problem started. What has changed that might explain your loss of connectivity? Did you or somebody else change the wireless network configuration? If the network seems to disappear after you change the web key on the access point, for example, you have your solution, or at least your culprit. Did your office experience a power outage, power sag, or power surge? Any of these might cause a WAP to fail. Once you figure out the who, what, and when, you can start troubleshooting in earnest. Typically, your problem is going to center on your hardware, software, connectivity, or configuration. Note, as with all things computing, don't forget to do the standard PC troubleshooting thing and reboot the computer before you do any configuration or hardware changes. Hardware troubleshooting. Wireless network and hardware components are subject to the same kind of abuse and faulty installation as any other hardware component. Troubleshooting a suspected hardware problem should bring out the CompTIA A+ certified technician in you. Open Windows Device Manager and check to see if there is an error or conflict with the wireless adapter. If you see a big yellow exclamation point or a red X next to the device, you have either a driver error or a resource conflict. Reinstall the device driver or manually reset the IRQ resources as needed. Software troubleshooting. Because you've already checked to confirm that your hardware is using the correct driver, what kind of software-related problems are left to check? Two things come immediately to mind: the wireless adapter configuration utility and the WAP's firmware version. As mentioned earlier, some wireless devices won't work correctly unless you install the vendor-provided drivers and configuration utility before plugging in the device. This is particularly true of wireless USB devices. If you don't do this, go into Device Manager and uninstall the device and start again from scratch. Some WAP manufacturers are notorious for shipping devices without the latest firmware installed. This problem often manifests as a device that enables clients to connect, but only at such slow speeds that the devices experience frequent timeout errors. The fix for this is to update the access point's firmware. Go to the manufacturer's website and follow the support links until you find the latest version. You need the device's exact model and serial number. This is important because installing the wrong firmware version on your device is a guaranteed way to render it unusable. Again, follow the manufacturer's instructions for updating the firmware to the letter. Typically, you need to download a small executable updating program along with a data file containing the firmware software. The process takes only minutes, and you'll be amazed at the results. Connectivity troubleshooting. Properly configured wireless clients should automatically and quickly connect to the desired SSID. If this isn't taking place, it's time for some troubleshooting. Most wireless connectivity problems come down to an incorrect configuration, like an incorrect password, low signal strength, or interference. Without a strong signal, even a properly configured wireless client isn't going to work. Wireless clients use a multi-bar graph, usually 5 bars, to give an idea of signal strength. 0 bars indicate no signal, and 5 bars indicates maximum signal. Whether configuration or signal strength is the issue, the process to diagnose and repair the problem uses the same methods that you would use for a wired network. First, check the wireless NIC's link light to see whether it's passing data packets to and from the network. Second, check the wireless NIC's configuration utility. Typically, the utility has an icon in your system tray that shows the strength of your wireless signal. Note, if you have a laptop with an internally installed NIC instead of a USB NIC, for example, your device may not have a link light. The link state defines the wireless NIC's connection status to a wireless network, connected or disconnected. If your link state indicates that your computer is currently disconnected, you may have a problem with your WAP. If your signal is too weak to receive a signal, you may be out of range of your access point, or a device may be causing interference. The interference can be caused by a device blocking the signal, like a metal object. Think refrigerator or water heater. Because Wi-Fi uses radio waves, it's also subject to radio frequency interference, RFI, where the Wi-Fi signal is disrupted by a radio signal from another device. You can fix these problems in a number of ways. Because Wi-Fi signals bounce off objects, you can try small adjustments to your antennas to see if the signal improves. You can swap out the standard antenna for one or more higher gain antennas. You can relocate the PC or access point. If you've just set up the network and find dead spots, you might have incorrect WAP placement. Move the WAP. Other wireless devices that operate in the same frequency range as your wireless nodes can cause interference and increase latency as well, making the network seem sluggish. Look for wireless telephones, intercoms, and so on as possible culprits. Another problem can occur when you have overlapping WAP signals sent by WAPs that aren't broadcasting their SSIDs. If you have one of these wireless networks saved in your system, your computer could attempt to log into other WAPs, resulting in an SSID mismatch error. One fix for interference caused by other wireless devices is to change the channel your network uses. Another is to change the channel of offending device uses, if possible. If you can't change the channels, try moving the interfering device to another area or replacing it with a different device. Note, one trick that works for wireless networks that seem a bit flaky with a Windows XP client is to disable the Wireless 0 configuration service on the client. To do this, simply open the services applet in Administrative Tools and change the startup type option from automatic to disabled. Document your change, of course, so you'll remember to turn Zero Conference back on in case of disabling it doesn't provide the fix you want. Configuration troubleshooting. With all due respect to the fine network techs in the field, the most common type of wireless networking problem is misconfigured hardware or software. That's right, the dreaded user error. Given the complexities of wireless networking, this isn't so surprising. All it takes is one slip of the typing finger to throw off your configuration completely. The things that you're most likely to get wrong are the SSID and security configuration. Verify the SSID configuration on your access point first, and then check the affected wireless nodes. Most wireless devices enable you to use any characters in the SSID, including blank spaces. Be careful not to add blank characters where they don't belong, such as trailing blank spaces behind any other characters typed into the name field. If you're using MAC address filtering, make sure the MAC address of the client that's attempting to access the wireless network is on the list of accepted users. This is particularly important if you swap out NICs on a PC or if you introduce a new PC to your wireless network. Check the security configuration to make sure all wireless nodes and access points match. Mistyping an encryption key prevents the affected node from talking to the wireless network. even if your signal strength is 100%. Remember that many access points have the capability to export encryption keys onto a flash drive. Then you simply import the encryption key onto the PC using the wireless NICs configuration utility. Remember that many access points have the capability to export encryption keys onto a flash drive. Then you simply import the encryption key onto the PC using the wireless NICs configuration utility. Remember, the encryption level must match on access points and wireless nodes. If your WAP is configured for 128-bit encryption, all nodes must also use 128-bit encryption.